Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Fang of Critias Lair of Darkness deck profile. So I'm really excited for this one because this deck is an insanely fun deck to be able to play around with that uses the Fang of Critias to summon some of the coolest monsters in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! In the form of Mirror Force Dragon, Doom Virus Dragon, and even Destruction Dragon, which are insanely powerful dragon monsters that are used to actually fusion summon using trap cards and the Fang of Critias, which is really crazy. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name in the description of every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Darkest Diabolos, Lord of the Lair, which is an insanely good boss monster for this particular deck. It has the ability that your opponent cannot tribute this face-up card, and it also has the ability that if a dark monster you control is tributed, then you can special summon this card from your graveyard or your hand. And also it has the ability that you can tribute a dark monster and your opponent places a card from your hand on either the top or the bottom of the deck, but you can only use each of the effects of this card once per turn. It also cannot be targeted with card effects, which is a great effect as well. We then play 3 copies of Arima, the Wicked Warden. Arima is a great card in this particular deck because it has the ability that you can discard this card to add a Lair of Darkness from your deck to your hand. It also has the ability that you can tribute a dark monster to draw a card, or if you tributed a dark monster other than this card to activate its effect, you can add a dark monster with 2,000 or more defense from your deck to your hand, which can be your copy of your Darkest Diabolos, which then immediately special summons itself because the chain finishes resolving and it recognizes that something was just tributed. We then play 3 copies of Lith, Lady of Lament. Lith, Lady of Lament is a great card because if this card is normal summon, then its original attack becomes 1,000. And then quick effect, you can tribute a dark monster, reveal 3 normal traps in the deck, and if you do, your opponent randomly picks 1, and then you set it to your field and shuffle the rest back into the deck, which is a great effect just to be able to grab any of the traps that you need, from Mirror Force to Crush card to Ring of Destruction. Even cards like Artifact Sanctum you can grab out of the deck to play some really insanely good plays. We then play a single copy of Malice, Lady of Lament. Malice is also a very good card, but you just play her as a one-of. She's not quite as good as Lith because she costs a little bit more to use her effect because you have to tribute 2 monsters to target 1 of your normal traps that's banished her in the graveyard and set that target, but place it on the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field. Great effect, but you just need 1 of her because usually you're not going to be using that effect all that often. We then play 3 copies of Tour Guide. Tour Guide is a fantastic card in this particular deck. Tour Guide is overall a really great normal summon because she can get Lith out of the deck, she can get stuff like Skarm out of the deck, she can even special summon other Tour Guides out of the deck, and she's just an overall fantastic card. We then play a single copy of Skarm, Malebranche of the Burning Abyss. That if this card's in the graveyard during the end phase, you can add a Dark Fiend monster from your deck to your hand that's level 3. So this card can add your copy of Lith, Malice, or Tour Guide from your deck to your hand, which is a lot of targets this card can particularly grab. Up to 7 monsters that you can grab with this card, which is really, really good. We then play 2 copies of Artifact Scythe to round out the monsters. Artifact Scythe, when it's special summoned during your opponent's turn, you can make it so your opponent can't special summon from the extra deck, and you can set it into your back row as a spell card, and then during the opponent's turn, if this set card is destroyed, you immediately special summon it, and then they can't special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, which is a awesome effect. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells, which we don't play very many spells in this deck at all. So for the spells, we're going to be playing 3 copies of the Fang of Critias. So the Fang of Critias is a pivotal card in this particular deck because what this card does is so good for the deck that basically this card lets you send a trap from your hand or field to the graveyard, and you get to special summon a fusion monster from your extra deck that specifically lists that trap card. So for example, you would send Mirror Force to the graveyard to summon Mirror Force Dragon, you'd send Ring of Destruction to the graveyard to special summon Destruction Dragon, and you would send Crush card to the graveyard to special summon Doom Virus Dragon, which is amazing boss monsters. We then play 3 copies of Lair of Darkness. Lair of Darkness has the ability that everything becomes dark, and then once per turn, if you attribute a monster to activate a card effect, then you can attribute a dark monster your opponent controls instead, and then also for every card that is attributed during that particular turn, the turn player gets a Torment token, which is really good because it can get you a bunch of monsters to then link summon, which is a very nice effect. We play 3 copies of Allure of Darkness. Allure of Darkness just helps us dig into the deck really deep to be able to grab the particular cards that we need out of the deck, because you need to get to your copy of Fang of Critias very quickly. And then we play 3 copies of Super Polymerization, because Super Polymerization is basically here to fusion summon our opponent's monsters away by using Lair to be able to get rid of them, because it makes them all dark. We can then go into Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, which is a great card to actually use in this particular deck. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, that is the bread and butter of the deck, where we are going to be getting a lot of cards. So we're going to be playing 2 copies of Eradicator Epidemic. Eradicator Epidemic is a card that just basically turns all spells or traps off by attributing a 2,500 or more attack point monster. I have considered changing this out for 2 copies of Heavy Storm Duster to be able to pop my copies of Scythe, but I never usually have a problem because I always can get to Sanctum, but it's something that I have considered changing out in the deck. But what this card does is you attribute a dark monster with 2,500 or more attack, choose either spells or traps, check all spells or traps your opponent's side of the field and every single card that they draw, and you send the declared type to the graveyard for the rest of the 3 turns, which is really good. 3 of your opponent's turns, which is really good, that basically you're just stopping your opponent from spells or traps. We're then playing 2 copies of Crush Card. Crush Card is very good. Basically, you're just using this card to go into your copy of Doom Virus. You're never going to activate this card because it's not quite as good as it used to be because they changed the effect. But what it does is you tribute a dark monster with 1,000 or less attack, which you have quite a couple of them in the deck. Pretty much all of your normal summons except for Arima from Lith, your copy of your Lith, both your Ladies of Lament, your copy of Tour Guide, your copy of Skarm, all of them can be tributed for the effect of Crush Card. And then you get to look at every card in your opponent's hand and all monsters they currently control and destroy monsters among them that have 1,500 or more attack. And then your opponent can destroy up to 3 monsters with 1,500 or more attack in their deck as well, which is a pretty good effect, but it doesn't kind of go off quite as well as it used to, so I just like to go into Doom Virus instead. We then play 2 copies of Mirror Force to go into Mirror Force Dragon, which is an insanely good card. If your opponent declares an attack, you destroy all attack position monster your opponent controls. And then we play 2 copies of Ring of Destruction. Ring of Destruction also had its effect changed a little bit, which is kind of bad, but same thing, is kind of good at the same time because it's more balanced. During your opponent's turn, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls that has more attack or has less attack than their current life points and destroy that monster. And then if you do, you take damage equal to the damage of the original monster, and then you inflict the damage to your opponent that you took, but you can't activate this card if it's going to reduce your opponent's life points to 0, because you have to pick something that has more attack than their life point, or less attack than their life points, so you cannot actually take them out with Ring of Destruction anymore. We then play 3 copies of Artifact Sanctum, because basically it's going to get your Scythe out of the deck very quickly to be able to special summon an Artifact Scythe during your opponent's turn, to be able to make it so they can't special summon from the extra deck, which is a great effect. We then play 3 copies of Trap Trick to round out the traps for this particular deck. 3 Trap Tricks basically says, hey, you can play multiples, you can play 5 copies of every single trap that you just showed, because all of these basically count as 5 ofs, and then these count as 6 ofs for the deck, because what this card does is you banish a normal trap from the deck, and then you set a copy of the same trap from the deck. So basically you'd banish this Ring of Destruction, and you'd set this Ring of Destruction, or you'd banish this Mirror Force, and then you set this Mirror Force to your side of the field. So basically it searches any of your traps and immediately sets them in the field to let Fang of Critias use them as fusion materials, which is awesome. So that's it for the traps and the main deck guy. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Mirror Force Dragon. Mirror Force Dragon is a insanely good card, and probably it's actually the reason I built this entire deck, because what this card does is this card can only be special summoned the Fang of Critias using Mirror Force. And then when a monster you control is targeted for an attack by an opponent's card effect, or targeted by an attack or an opponent's card effect, you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. Just immediately destroy everything they have. Like, everything they have is gone, which is insanely, like, cool. I love this card's effect. When I summon this card to my side of the field, I usually win, because it's just hilarious to be able to destroy everything that they control. We then play 2 copies of Doom Virus. Doom Virus is really good because it has the ability. It has the very, very neat effect. I'm going to put the one that actually has the shorter text on top. And what this card does is you have to use Crush Card with Fang of Critias to summon this card. And when you do, basically it has the old school effect of Crush Card that has the ability that you look at your opponent's hand and all monsters they currently control and all cards they draw into the end of their 3rd turn of this effect's activation, and you destroy all of those monsters with 1,500 or more attack, which is really good. We then play a single copy of Destruction Dragon. Destruction Dragon is probably the one that I summon the least in this deck, which is why I just play 1 copy of it. And it has the ability to use Ring Destruction with Fang of Critias to summon this, and it has the ability you can target 1 card your opponent controls, destroy it, and then if it was a monster, you inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack, which is basically the old school crush, or not the old school crush card, but the old school Ring of Destruction effect, which is really cool because it just pops a card and then they take damage equal to that monster's attack. So for the other fusion monsters, we're playing a single copy of Starving Venom because it's a super poly target, one copy of Dracostapelia because it deals with Dragoons, and this card is really good just to summon to your side of the field, one copy of Mud Dragon because it's a copy of a super poly target that basically can summon itself if you don't have your copy of super poly. We play a single copy of Access Code because it can pop multiple cards, one copy of Unicorn because it can spin stuff, one copy of Phoenix because it can pop spells or traps, one copy of Beat Cop. I like Beat Cop as a one-of in this deck because it has the ability that if this card's link summon using 2 dark monsters, then you can treat a monster, then target a card on the field, and place a patrol counter on it, which if Lair of Darkness is on the field, you contribute your opponent's monsters for this particular effect, which comes in really handy. And it also has the ability to only use this card once per turn, and then if a card has a patrol counters on it, would be destroyed by battle or by card effect, you remove the patrol counter from it instead. We then play a single copy of Masquerena because Masquerena lets us link summon during our opponent's turn, and it helps out with the Torment tokens because you can use the Torment tokens to summon this card. One copy of Cross Sheep because Cross Sheep with fusion monsters just comes in ridiculously handy, and then one copy of Verte Anaconda because you can use it with Super Poly, which is super nice. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoy it. It's a really fun deck to be able to play around with. I highly recommend that you guys give this deck a try because it is a super fun deck to be able to play around with. It's relatively budget. It's not too expensive to actually be able to pick up this deck because the majority of the stuff has been pre-printed as commons anyways, especially the Lair of Darkness package, except for maybe, I think Lith has not been reprinted as a common, but everything else has pretty much been reprinted as a common in this deck. So it's a very easy pickup deck. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can come part notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.